find the slides here. Let's see. Oh, that's kind of weird. Okay, let's just slides go. Let's see. There, desktops. There. There. About that. Okay. That should work. Let's see here. I'm going to be able to see myself. Can you see? Yeah, I think that should be okay. Hopefully that's, am I showing myself? Yes, I am. Okay. So let me just do this here. And this will work better. There we go. Now I can actually see myself and what I'm doing. Okay. So tonight's class, we are going to be talking about how to read supplements, all things about how to decide what to take, how much, all that kind of stuff. So let's start off by talking a little bit about me. So who am I? So for one thing, I am a health coach. Went to school with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and graduated in 2015. And I am also a doTERRA wellness advocate, have been that since 2011, so know quite a bit about essential oils and other kinds of supplements. I am also a big avocado lover. Sounds a little crazy, but I love avocados in any and all forms, so I always kind of stick that into my bio as an interesting fact. I'm also a big fan of dogs and kind of a health nut, and have also had Hashimoto since 2018, but pretty much have almost no more symptoms and pretty much mostly recovered, which is really amazing, in part due to some good kinds of supplements as well as some other health and wellness type things as well. So let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so why do you need supplements in the first place? Well, you can see there's two different main reasons here. One being that it's nearly impossible to get everything you need from food. Unfortunately, our food in today's world does not have the kind of nutrients it had for even our parents, and especially not our grandparents. Too many of us are even eating things that it would be hard pressed to say if it's actually considered food. And many of us are deficient in things like zinc, vitamin D, and B12. And I put those three on there because those three have a tendency to be the three that big ones that a lot of us end up being deficient in the most. And there's a wide variety for that. With zinc and B12, a lot of times it's because we don't eat enough of the foods that contain those. Some of the foods that contain those in the highest quantity, not the only foods that contain those, would be a lot of things like beef and even liver and other kinds of meat that a lot of us don't eat in really large amounts. And so that results in deficiencies. And then vitamin D, a lot of times, a lot of us don't spend enough time outside and we end up with vitamin D deficiencies, or we just don't eat enough vitamin D rich foods. And so, there's possible to be deficient in other things as well, but those three are just the three that a lot of us end up being deficient in on a more regular basis. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So a couple of things to keep in mind. So these are some of the things that I feel like are really important when it comes to deciding on supplements, what kinds of supplements to take. So the first one is you don't want to just take a bunch of supplements without a purpose. And while this might seem kind of obvious, I see a lot of people that do this. They go online, they do a lot of research, they find things, and they just start taking things without really thinking about exactly what they're taking. And so before you know it, they're doing things like they're taking a multivitamin, they're taking a fish oil, they're taking a this, they're taking a that, they're taking more zinc, more D, more all these other things, and they haven't really thought about exactly why is it that they are taking these supplements, and do they actually really need them, and do they know for sure that they need them, and what is really in the supplements that they're taking. So along with that, getting tested for deficiencies. So there are actual blood tests and other kinds of medical tests that can be done to help you determine what kind of deficiencies you might actually have. And it may or may not be standard at the actual doctor's office for you to get these kind of tests. So this may be something that you may have to dig deeper. You may even have to go to something like some kind of a functional medicine doctor, or some chiropractors can run these tests. Some acupuncture clinics will run them, different things like that. But you really shouldn't just go willy-nilly. You should try to have a pretty good idea about what you are deficient in before you just start jumping to conclusions and just start taking a whole bunch of supplements. And there can be a lot of reasons for this. Not only is it a waste of money, but it is possible to take too much of a good thing. Like, I have heard some stories recently of people that have gone way overboard and taken way too much vitamin B12 or too much vitamin D or things like that. And if you have an over supplementation, then that can be worse than having an under supplementation if you really overdo it. So you really should know what exactly you're deficient in before you just start taking a whole bunch of stuff. Now, that said, there's no harm in most cases in taking some things like a basic fish oil or multivitamin type thing without getting a bunch of tests. But if you're really going to take any kinds of substantial amounts of supplements, you really should know what you're deficient in before you just start taking a bunch of stuff. And then along with that, know why you were taking what you were taking. So what exactly is the reasoning behind what you're taking? Do you have a specific deficiency? Do you have a specific health issue that you need it for? So for example, for me, I take a specific thyroid or supplement that's specifically designed, a T3 conversion supplement for the thyroid, which is specifically formulated for thyroid issues, which I know that I have, and I know through blood tests that taking that really has a big impact on me. So, that is one of the reasons why I'm taking that, but I don't just start taking a bunch of stuff just cuz. And then avoid too much of any one thing. And then, like it says, also consider help from a chiropractor, functional medicine doctor, that kind of thing, rather than just jumping to conclusions and taking a bunch of stuff. Okay, so that's kind of that lecture part in mind. And then a couple other things to think about is that many supplements do not contain what you think they do, or what they say they do. Unfortunately, a lot of times the regulations in this country around labeling and things are such that sometimes it can be really hard to figure out if something actually has in it what you think it has in it. And many times there's added sugar and colors to things. Like, I've seen labels for some supplements that have more sugar in them than some kinds of candy, and it's like, what? It's like they're trying to take a supplement and make it a candy, but that's not really the point. And then also synthetic versions of supplements as well. This can actually be really common, especially with some forms of vitamin C. Not all supplements have actual vitamin C that's actually the real thing. So those are some things to take a look at. We're going to look at some labels here in a few minutes for some examples. Okay, so here's a couple of labels. So this is a label just from a bottle that I found. I don't think that I have ever actually taken any of this. This is just a bottle that was lying around the house that somebody else in my household had. And you can kind of just see here how it tells you how many calories are in it, tells you what it is. This is primarily an immune boosting supplement thing. So it's got like D3, it's got a lot of C, but in what form? It looks like it's an ester C calcium form of C, so it's not going to be quite the same as maybe some other kinds. It's got some B vitamins, things like that, and it can be kind of hard to tell, but if you look down at the bottom, you can tell that it's got some additional additive things that may or may not make it what you really want to take. So what I find when you're looking at a label, couple of key things. So you want to look at how much of something is. The daily max, and the daily max can be a little confusing as well, because what they're saying here is that this is the percentage of that thing compared to what they feel like the max amount is that you should take. But if you're also taking additional supplements, you have to take that into account. You also have to take into account the fact that you're probably getting some of these vitamins from your diet, especially if you're eating a variety of fruits and vegetables and healthy food. You probably aren't. So for example, where it says that it's got, what was that one percentage there? 75% of your D3. Well, to what extent, and are you taking additional supplements that have D3, all that kind of thing. So this is kind of an example of one where it's got a lot of different things, and you really want to take a look at, is this the only thing you're taking? Or are you taking something else that's also got some of the same things, that kind of stuff. And then this right here is actually an example of a supplement drop. This is actually one of the thyroid things that I take for Hashimoto's. And it's literally, you can see it just literally got some things in it. It does, and they specifically says it doesn't have wheat, garlic, sugar, yeast, all those kinds of things. And those are also things to pay attention to as well, because believe it or not, some supplements actually do have things like gluten and corn and dairy and soy and sugars and other starches and things in them. And so you want to really try to have supplements that are as pure as possible without all these extra additives. So that can be something to take a look at. And then this is another one. This is a doTERRA one. The Mitotomax specifically tells you what some of the formulations are in here, but you'll notice here that on this one, they've chosen not to put the percentage of daily values, and partly because this particular supplement contains some things that are not or is an additive for helping you have increased energy, and there's not a specific daily value of what is recommended for any of these things, because these are not your standard supplements. These are an additional to help with a lot of your energy and your mitochondria and that kind of stuff. So that's another thing to take a look at, is sometimes there's some supplements out there that just don't have a daily value type thing listed, because you may be taking it for additional energy, like in this case, or things like probiotics, things like that. They're not going to tell you there's a daily value because it's an additional additive above and beyond maybe what you might normally take. Then this is a probiotic one, and real key thing with a probiotic is you want to be checking for the number of strains, the number of unique strains that are in a probiotic. You also want to be checking for any additives, which they're all going to have some kind of an additive to some degree. That's just what helps the probiotic, stay together and go in your stomach, that kind of thing. But you don't want too many additives. And the interesting thing that I find interesting is that for a long time, for a couple of years, I actually took one that was refrigerated that I got from an acupuncture clinic. And then I actually was doing some more research, and with several different doctors online, they were saying that actually the ones that are refrigerated a lot of times are actually not the best ones for you, just because of the way they're formulated, that kind of thing. So you actually want one that's not refrigerated, which I found kind of interesting, because it seemed, you might think that, especially if an acupuncture clinic is selling one that's refrigerated, that it might be better. But anyhow, so yes, and with probiotics, the main thing is as many different strains as possible, and as many high count of billions when it comes to the probiotics is basically what you're looking for on that kind of thing. So then this is another one. This is actually the back label, the thyroid one that I take, and you can see here how it's got daily values for a lot of the stuff and things, and how, there's a few ingredients in the capsule, but it doesn't list sugar or starches or any other kinds of additives. And some of these things down here, it doesn't really tell you, again, what the daily value is, and that's because there's not really a recommended daily value per se. This is an extra additive type thing formulated for thyroid issues specifically. Okay, and then this is an example of a magnesium label. This one's actually one from Whole Foods. And you can see here that this actually has 95% of magnesium. And then, it's got a few other things here. It's telling you it's vegan. It's got some tapioca stuff in it, some sunflower, some guar gum, which it says organic, which is a good thing, because guar gum is kind of a filler type thing that's actually in a lot of supplements. It's also used in a lot of dog foods as a filler, different things like that. And, you're going to have some kind of these kinds of things in a lot of your supplements. But, the more that you can get these to be organic, so like the sunflower lecithin's organic, the better. Then this is an example of a supplement that isn't really a supplement. It's really a candy. So if you look here, it says the serving size may only be 1 gummy, but 1 to 2 gummies. And I have to confess that I did try these at one point, but they were very sweet. And it literally was like a candy where they've literally put, like, you can see there's even 4 grams of carbs in just one thing. So it's kind of a high carb. They've got some folic acid in there, okay. They've got some B12, okay. Apple cider vinegar, which there's no daily recommended on apple cider vinegar, But then it also says it's got cane sugar, tapioca, pectin, citric acid, apple flavor, some organic fruits and things like that. And even though it says there's only 1 gram of added sugar for just one gummy, and you figure most people are taking 2 or 3 a day, it says up to 6 a day. I have to tell you, my own experience with this, it was super sweet. And but then it says all the things it doesn't contain. So this is really an example of one that's really not a supplement, but rather an actual candy. So something to be aware of. The other kinds of examples of some others that I found that end up with a lot of candy sweetener type things in them would be things like some kinds of elderberry type candy gummy things can have a lot of sugar in them too. There's different brands out there. Some of them might have only a trace amount, some don't have any sugar. However, some of them will have, just a lot of added sugars and things like that in them. And so that's just another thing to be aware of, because you don't want to be, intaking yourself sugar with supplements. And so this is a couple things. So, if you want to have some actual personalized help, get some resources, things like that, not sure what you really need, you can schedule an actual consultation with me. That's the link to do it. And the other slide that I probably should have put in here that I didn't, so we'll just talk about that for a few minutes as well, is the fact that how do you really find the best quality supplements? Well, one way to find the best ones is honestly to go through some kind of a provider, or to actually, and this is where it helps to have actually done the testing to determine what you need, is that a lot of the highest quality supplements are either going to be sold through some kind of doctor's office or provider, or they're going to be sold online. They're going to be ones you don't just go buy at the store. Some of the very best supplements are not just the ones you go to the store and buy. It doesn't mean that you can't go to Whole Foods or Sprouts or some other places and find some good quality ones, but most of the better ones, from my experience, are going to be online, specialty, through either medical providers or ones that you just have to order online, have shipped to you. They're not going to be the ones that you just kind of can willy-nilly go buy and dabble through at the store. That's just how supplementation works. And so that's pretty much, I know it's a little maybe short, but that's kind of really all that I had to cover. Do either of you ladies have any specific questions? And I know, Karen, you missed a big chunk of it, but this is being recorded, and I will be sending out the recording later.
Oh,
And let
thank
me actually
you.
stop it and let you ask your questions, actually.